Clash of Clans Podcast OG, episode 23.
Skilly beep 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 skilly beep.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. I'm your host, Scotty827. Got that right this time, and joined with your other host, the lovely, the beautiful, the amazing TipDog20.
So
How's it
this
going?
is the Michael Jordan episode.
The Michael Jordan episode?
Does Michael Jordan listen to
Oh, yeah.
the Clash of Clans podcast, you
Well,
think?
obviously.
I mean, yeah. He's welcome to come on at any time,
He
right?
probably gems his account, though.
Probably.
He doesn't have to worry about the
With
ins
as
and
much
outs.
money as he has, I imagine he could gem like 50 accounts if he wanted.
Yeah. I don't ever use the same account twice to do an attack.
I wonder what
By
he would
knowing-
name all his accounts. He would be okay. One of the accounts would be 23. One of them would be Bullmaster. One of them
Bullshit.
would be best player ever. Jordan's would be another
Bullshitter.
one. Bullshitter.
don't
We'll have to
know.
ask him when he comes on the podcast what he's
Yeah.
named all his accounts.
Yeah. I'm thinking we should thank him in advance for agreeing to. Well, he contacted us, to be frankly honest.
Right.
Beating down
Exactly.
the door. Wow. It has been a week in Clash and coming down from that interview last week.
It was a good one, wasn't it? Lots to think about.
Yeah. It was more like it's okay. So it's kind of like this is how I felt, to be honest. If you're like, okay, imagine it's a movie, right? And it's one of those movies where you are like the cop or something, or you're the guy or the normal and somehow an alien pops out, right? And you're like, holy shit, aliens are real. Oh my God, right? That's me with Clash. That's, oh my God, okay, this is a whole new world, like these battles. And then, kind of like Men in Black, they take you back to the base. And then you see that there's a whole government agency devoted, like Men in Black, right? Like, holy shit, aliens are real. And talking to him, I kind of felt like, yeah, I knew the aliens were real. But then now I'm at the headquarters of the CIA or the government anti-alien agency. And I had no idea all the shit was here. And so it was really kind of a mind-bending experience. I quit my job.
You're gonna become a professional clasher.
I'm going to quit my job. I haven't slept. I'm working on 18-hour Clash days now.
So I'm
Training.
curious the perspective that you've gained. We're going to be talking about some pretty deep stuff this episode, and I'm really interested in getting your feedback. But I'm curious if last week's episode is going to give you a different perspective on any of the topics that we're going to cover in this episode. Like, do you think that you look at the game, and how do you look at the game differently now that you know there's this huge world of esports and professional Clash and people who make money off of Clash, like a lot of money off of Clash, people who play it so much? Like, what's your initial response to that perspective?
To
Speechless.
that there was, yeah, really kind of it was, again, it's kind of like Demolition Man, right? You got the city on the top, everything looks nice, and then there's the underworld.
Mhm.
And you've got these, huge things underneath. It was a really eye-opening piece to think about how the economy has grown. And I was talking to Oshak Hennessy in L this week about this, that like there were things years ago around, uh, you could have base builders and stuff, I'm sure, but it wasn't the amount of, I don't know, like I want to say establishment of
Mhm.
these practices and it kind of launching into a whole different realm, right? Like base building and the way that has become basically like instead of backyard wrestling now it's more like WWE, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's a good comparison.
And it's like, oh, okay, so people could make handmade belts before, but now you've got like these amazing, beautiful, glinting, belts that are popping up, and you've got to keep up with like it's like hockey or whatever. It's like you're keeping up with the new equipment, and you kind of getting there. And I think in seeing that, it was like, wow, it is still both the same game.
So I
And
think there are
yeah,
two perspectives. So one of them's kind of like whenever we first started playing Clash, it's like we all enjoy golf on the weekends. I don't play golf. Maybe you do. I'm not sure if you do or not. That's never come up, so I doubt you do.
no,
But
I
it's
mean,
like
I'd like to, but
it sounds
I'm
like yeah, it seems like fun and it's a great way to interact and socialize. But it's like guys who get together play golf every weekend versus the guys who are on the PGA tour and just the amount of time that's spent in practicing your
on it.
putts, practicing your swings, trying not to slice, like all of that.
The best
Just
gloves, the
there's just
best.
huge gulf between a PGA tour player and just your regular guy who plays golf on the weekends. And in 2015, 2016, essentially Champions War League and these quote unquote higher level leagues were made up of weekend golfers. Like it was just, and who was the best weekend golfer? Like who could drink the most beer and hit a straight line drive of the golf ball
Yeah,
to the hole? Like, and if you could hit it and not slice it a majority of the time, well, then you were the best player. Well, in
happy Gilmore.
Clash, there has evolved this PGA Tour like group that just practice every single day. And Ghostnite, of course, is very good, and I'm sure he practices a ton. But I'm sure that there are other Clashers out there who play just as much, if not more, than Ghostnite and practice, which kind of comes down to the second point, which is after the Ghostnite interview, it's easy to see why there's such a massive gulf between the professional player and the average clasher. Like there are 50 to 60 more than that. So right now Clash has I think 75 million active players. There are 74 million active Clash of Clans players who don't even come near that time that's put in the game. And there are, I wouldn't even say a million, I would say a few thousand players, maybe 10,000 who play for multiple hours every single day. And they've done this for years. So the gulf is much easier to see after that interview because we can see, of course, if you do anything, if you play piano for
Yeah,
10 to 12 hours a day for
the 10
5 years, you're going to be a lot better than somebody who sits down and plays chopsticks on the weekends.
well, do you know the 10,000-hour rule?
Right, yeah, that was what, Malcolm Gladwell who brought that up?
Yeah,
I
he
think it's
it's
Malcolm
it's
Gladwell.
yeah, it wasn't his idea, but it was he made it popular, I believe.
And
Um,
Outliers, and that's a really good book, by the
yeah,
way. I loved
yeah,
it.
fantastic.
Really good book.
And basically, it takes you 10,000 hours to become an expert in anything. And so you can have people who have natural talent at the beginning that, start off well, but over time, um, that levels off and 10,000 hours of whatever you're doing, you're an expert at. And
Something to work.
like well thought out, like where
Right.
you're putting effort into those 10,000 hours. But and like think about it too. I think with like Clash, it is not just um in the 10,000 hours, it's not just playing the game, but it might be thinking about it. It might be talking, strategizing, you put those pieces into it, and so like what the whole point is when we see people like celebrities or bands and they're really good, almost all of them, the really, really good ones, like the Beatles before they even played in America,
Exactly.
had played 10,000 hours together. So we weren't, like, just seeing a new band or whatnot, but
You're seeing a polished band, right?
yeah. Do you think it's a little bit of, and I don't mean this in any negative way really, but a little bit of gatekeeping too? That, like, that the leagues, that the people that people know, don't they have to go through the kind of rough, or the, outside of Supercell established league system?
I mean, I think there's gatekeeping in anything that you do, right?
Yeah, and I'm not saying it in a bad way, I'm just saying
Right.
kind of what ends up happening is, like, are are there that good of players that are just not ending up in the esports realm, is, I guess, kinda what I mean, because of some of those limitations.
I mean, I think that there are definitely players out there who don't do esports who could be good enough to play esports. I mean, one of the reasons why some players don't get into esports is because of the drama that's involved. I mean, recently there's been so much drama about esports that, I mean, we play this game to have fun, to relieve some stress, to let off some smoke. Um, and why would I want to be stressed out in an esports environment? I mean, even Ghostnite was talking about how in the early days when he wasn't doing as well, like he was stressed out because he didn't want to be that guy who wasn't tripling at a high percentage. So maybe I'm sure there are tons of players who are like, you know what, and they're good, like they're very good players, but like I don't want to be stressed out by the esports scene, so I'm not even going to bother with it. When if it was a little easier to get there, or
Yeah.
maybe a little less drama, then maybe they would participate. I mean, that's a good point.
Like, if, okay, imagine this, like, if in the game, well, I guess I'm not saying here add this feature, I'm just saying, you know, it's not like if you achieve personally in your clan, and maybe I'm wrong about this, something that you automatically get put into a league, you know what I mean? Or,
Right.
like, have the option to join an esports thing. You kinda have to go outside of, I mean, with kind of the established things, like, of applications or whatever, right?
Right. Yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
So, I don't know. I'm just kinda curious about that as you're talking.
So I'm curious what your thoughts are on how important esports is to the success of the game Clash of Clans. Because now that we know about this entire organization, the reality is, as far as the player base is or I'm sorry, the esports realm is teeny tiny compared to the overall casual player base. And the accusation is that Supercell has been catering to the casual player base way too much over these past 6 months or so, with the introduction of hero equipment, with how powerful root riders were, with how easy it is, quote unquote, to triple at Town Hall 16. And as a result, are we going to see a dying off of the esports realm? So, for instance, in 2023, Clash Worlds involved 8 teams. Like they flew 8 teams out to Finland to compete at Clash Worlds. This year, they dropped it down to 6 teams, which obviously means that they're valuing the esports experience. They don't see the value in spending as much money on the esports realm. Well, how much of an influence does having esports in Clash of Clans determine how many players actually play the game outside of esports? Like, do you see the connection between that, and how much of an influence do you think that it has?
Well,
It's a deep
I
question, though. I mean, and obviously it involves realms that we don't know. We can only speculate on.
well, I
But
think
for
it's,
instance, one reason that League of Legends is so popular is because it's streamed all the time on Twitch, and players compete in it, and they can get better, and they can strive for that highest level. Like one of the reasons why I play Clash of Clans is because I want to get better. Like I see the potential for me to 3-star more, to attack better, to learn stuff. And as long as I'm learning and striving for something, anything, whether that's playing the piano or playing Clash of Clans, like if I see value in that, then I'm going to continue doing that. if esports becomes diminished overall within Clash of Clans, do you think that there are going to be players who are like, I mean, I don't really see the point?
I don't know. It's, part of me thinks it's like there's like I think we look at it and we go like there's the casual player and then there's the elite player and there's the relationship between the elite player and the company and the casual player and the company. But I kind of think too, and I have no idea if this is a factor in things, but that there's also a relationship between the casual player and the elite player, and
And
if
I think that's the
one
connection that I'm
seems
asking about.
like too snooty or you know what, I don't even want to be part of that community because it seems like too much. It's like then what am I striving for? Or like well we'll do it this way or what's an alternative? I don't know. Like and so if the top end players or the elite players are complaining about something and it just is I don't know. I don't even know how to say it. Like, who's complaining about what probably matters and why? And so it's like it's a just a bigger picture than, and I have no idea. Like, maybe I don't know. Is the amount of esports overall changing? Like, is there more streams even though they're flying less people in? Is it, they're doing more events, like, maybe they only flew 6 people in this time because they found it only, people watched the last 3 rounds or something, so it's
Right.
like, if they fly these other people in, it's like, it just dilutes it, and I mean, I have no idea, but it would be cool to see the esports kinda like the PGA Tour, you could still walk on or you could still be an amazing golfer with your crappy clubs. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And kinda come from nowhere and play. And it and so maybe it's figuring out a little bit of a balance between those realms, I don't know.
Which that kind of bridges us to another topic that we wanted to discuss, and that was hero equipment. And we actually had a discussion on Discord a little bit about whether or not hero equipment is pay to win. And you had a certain perspective. I have a little bit different perspective, not that unlike yours, but uh, I wanted to get your feedback first as far as the accusation, of course, has been made that hero equipment is pay to win. You can't upgrade it fast enough. And you gave a response to that. What are your thoughts about hero equipment and whether or not you can upgrade it fast enough, whether or not it's pay to win? Like, what's your perspective on
I forgot what I said.
that?
I you know, I th and I think I was talking with, Shaq about this too on Discord the other night. I everything is pay to win in a
Right?
little bit, right? Anytime you put something in, and that's only if you wanna get to the end right away, if you have to get to the end right away.
Hmm.
And but I also think, like, a piece of equipment comes out, but people don't use it anyways.
Right?
You don't see it for a while. I think it's to be honest, I'm sure I'd love to have everything faster, but for me, I feel like it's progressing along pretty good, like, even, like, as I get higher up, and I'm on, level 15s and 18s and stuff, and I know there's ways to go, and I got some that are lower levels, it's like, I feel like it's moving along enough that I don't feel like I'm waiting, that I'm making progress, these events come in and things are going good, is that what I said in the chat? I can't even remember.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, so I think it signifies the difference between a casual player and this elite esports player because I think that their experience with hero equipment is very different So, for example, on all of my lower accounts, which, I have 11, 12, 13, 2 14s, or and a 15. So on all of those accounts, I too feel like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I'm on my strategic rush 15, like I've almost maxed out a few pieces. I feel okay with where my hero equipment is at. And I think that is what the majority of the player base feels. Like they feel like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm gaining enough ore to make progress on my hero equipment to where I'm not upset that I'm not progressing faster. But if you go to the other side of the gulf with the esports player, if you think about it in the past, in order for them to compete, they need the very best equipment as quickly as possible. So a new update, for example, comes out and Supercell introduces new levels to cannons, new levels to arch towers, new levels to inferno towers, right? New root rider levels, like some new troop and spell levels. Well, in the past, for a player who's in the esports realm who's already max, it would take them maybe a month or two at most if they didn't spend any money to be able to max all of those items out. They also were aided by the help of hammers. Maybe they had saved up magic items to where they could get there more quickly. Like there were videos done of people who had like 18 or 20 books of heroes in storage, ready to get their heroes to max. And they had spent maybe 20 bucks, on equipment needed. Obviously, with the books of heroes, they spent a little more than that, but they didn't have to spend that much money to get max quickly. When with hero equipment, with as quickly as everything's been introduced, I would say that it's costing about 5 times the amount for that same esports player who could have been max in a month or two in order to max out the equipment that's been introduced in the game within the same time period. Like it's costing more for that max player to get to the point to where they can really be competitive, have a lot of different options in their hero equipment arsenal. Now, the response to that could be like, wah, wah, wah. Like, I'm sorry, your esports, suck it up if you want to play. This is essentially a pay to win game, right? You can choose not to play it. Like, don't
Right.
play it if you're gonna cry
The
about
entry fee is 20,000, right, or
Right.
whatever.
Yeah, but obviously there's some legitimacy to the claim because if I only had to spend 25, $50 to get to get to the point to where I could be reasonably competitive, and now it's costing in the hundreds of dollars in order to reach that same level of competency, that same level of maxing out equipment, does that matter? And for me, I'm not an esports player. So essentially it doesn't matter to me. I'm happy with the equipment that I have. Like on my main, there are multiple pieces that I have not maxed out yet that I would love to have access to. But like we just talked beforehand, I'm still doing very well in CWL. Like I can still triple on a consistent basis. I don't triple every time, but I'm doing decently well in Legend League without having every single piece of equipment max 6 months after they were introduced. So
Right.
for somebody like me, who I would consider a casual player, like who cares? Like it's not that big of a deal. But from the esports realm, I can see, oh man, you just essentially 5 times or 10 times my cost to stay competitive in esports, to have max equipment across the board in order to be competitive. That's not fair to me as an elite player. And I don't know.
You know, wouldn't an equipment potion solve and a defensive potion solve some of these problems?
It would, but that would cut into the revenue stream. I
Well, if they were
obviously,
expensive, if they were like a $5 potion, like a very,
yeah.
very expensive potion where it was like, "Listen, this will boost your just like it boosts your heroes levels, it'll boost all your equipment levels to max and your defensive, whatever your town hall, it'll boost your defenses." Well, I guess you don't need that. Maybe for a war, it would boost all your defenses up to like a friendly war just would upgrade your defenses. So it's like so that there's that even playing field. Like you have the ability, if you're an esports player, yeah, you're gonna pay a little bit more to have that potion, or you could pay 500 gems if that's what you want, or whatever. I mean, it that's or just like make it a normal. potion even. Um, wouldn't that kinda solve some of that?
I think it would, but then so we've kind of had this discussion in the past. As a company, as a business, it's essentially Supercell's job or any business. If you bake cookies, it's your job as a bakery
To
to
take them.
to sell those cookies for as much as you can get out of them. Now, granted, you could if they were insomnia cookies, you could sell them maybe for $1 a piece. You know, your ingredients are 30 cents. You know, your labor in that is another 50 cents, and you're making 20 cents per cookie. And so you have 20% profit. Well, would they would be wrong to sell their cookies for $1 if overall the buyer is willing to pay $5 per cookie. So as the business owner, they're leaving money on the table by offering a product or a service that they could charge more for. Like capitalism and the market would allow them to pay more for this product. They
Yeah,
would be irresponsible for not charging that amount.
but on the same time, there's another way I think you could look at it is there other way to approach like a business or to say, how do we be sustainable so that we can be that we can do what we like to do, we can um give the customers, the people have a good feeling of what they got and continue to be maybe we don't have to make the most money. Maybe we want to make the most money over the longest term and that's how we do it is, like focus on sustainability and maintaining the thing, right? Like I know we always like have to uh we think about it, but they could really when you get to that point where you're kind of in games, right? Like there's certain games that I've logged into and tried, and I'm not even name names. And when I feel like they're just ads like floating right in my face and it's just like bam, bam, you
Mhm.
gotta pay. It's like I don't want that. And I think Clash is, coming back to it, it's gotten a little bit more it's gotten more like that. Um, but it's not it's not like the other ones.
Right. And I agree with that.
And
Like,
so it's so I mean, I don't know, I think it's like you gotta find the balance where it's sustainable, it's not like, we're not gonna we can't keep taxing people over and over and over again. It's like, "Okay, this is doable," you know? "Hey, this comes out, not a problem, I can kinda wait," "I'm not gonna be too disadvantaged for a while." I've got a way to keep up, but I don't wanna have to keep buying these potions every time,
mhm.
you know? Instead of feeling like and I don't necessarily feel like this because I think, like, with the event passes and stuff, and I look at it and I go, "Well, it used to cost 1,000 gems to gem your hero, right?"
Mhm.
And for that $10 in a month now, it's like, well, I get hero books and all this stuff, a bunch of, equipment things, finishing things and whatnot, so I kinda feel like I'm getting way more for $10 than I used to back in the
Mhm.
day. Um, things progress quicker. I don't know. I guess
So,
I'm not really sure where I fall on all of it.
no, so I agree with you 100%. Like I think that and Clash has been known as the game that has been the least pay to win of all the games like combined. So back in the day we had what was that game? Game of War, is that right? The game that put out they put dueling commercials during the Super Bowl. You had the Clash commercial with Liam Neeson, and then you had the dueling
Oh,
Game of War with Kate. I think it was Kate Upton, where she was stepping out with this ball blowing up behind her. Wearing this beautiful dress,
yeah.
and Game of War was essentially much more pay to win than Clash was at the time. And now I'm assuming it's still out there, but I haven't heard it. So I imagine Game of War was so pay to win that eventually they just went to the wayside. And Clash of Clans has always struck that really good balance between pay to win and free to play to where they can be sustainable. I mean, they're coming up on their 13th anniversary as a mobile game. The only way that they've been able to continue their sustainability is by being able to make money, but not too much so. So continue that sustainability. So I think the question now is with hero equipment, obviously there's the value of current revenue versus the value of future money. And it seems like they're placing more value on current revenue just a little bit than they are on future income, whether that's because they see Clash as a genre of game that's kind of dying out over the next 10 years and they want to try to maximize their income now, or whether that's because, they were bought by Tencent and Tencent, and I don't know that this is the case at all. Not no accusations here, but does Tencent value profits more than before Supercell was sold to Tencent and the original group at Supercell valued sustainability more than profits? Like they still made their money, like they're billionaires now, right? But is it more pay to win because they have new owners?
Yeah, I'm sure there's probably, like, a model they kinda have to meet, and there's probably, like, a balance that they have to strike between, um, these are the feature this is the revenue kinda target, and this
Right.
is and whatever. Um, but does it also what does it also give us, you know?
Right. And I think you made a good point. Like the money that we can spend in game now, theoretically and perceptively, gives us more for our dollar than it did in 2016. Like
Yeah,
that's a clear fact.
yeah,
Like I can get more out of this dollar by spending it on Clash of Clans now than I could by spending this dollar in 2016 perceptively. Now, whether or not realistically that's still the case, there are 16 town halls now versus 10 back then. So I don't know realistically if that's still the case, but perceptively, it feels like I can buy more for my dollar now. And
yeah,
that's credit to them as a company. Like they're able to place certain value on certain items in game, virtual items that are worthless in the real world, and have convinced us to spend our money on these virtual items. And at the same time, make us feel like we're getting more value for our money now than we were back then.
and we're doing it and also no ads, like, there's not
Mhm.
any trash, like, infiltrating it. It's like well, and here's the thing too is we're putting time and effort and and they're providing a service and, you know, like, if we're spending a lot of time on it, we're getting a lot of reward, you
Right.
know? So maybe if you're just a player that comes in and, and you're only doing the war things and you're not playing other parts of the game, maybe that's different, I don't really know. Um, I don't really know much about the drama till, um, this kinda like last week, about, Supercell and relations and it's kind of I don't really know like, have a full picture or, really a dog in the fight right now, I guess, anyways, but, um, it seems like to me, like, before kinda learning about some things, it's like I had a different perception of where it was. I feel like, yeah, it's a little bit more businessy, but, it's fun and there's new things, it's exciting,
Right.
like, there's always
Yeah.
something to talk about, like, it's like, in the past episodes, it would be like, update
I upgraded a
every
gold mine this week.
yeah, yeah, it's like
Yeah. Yeah. So I've kind of taken the perspective, and I know that this is going to be booed by the esports side, but I've kind of taken the perspective that it's still possible to triple with the equipment that we have. So, for instance, on my Town Hall 16, I have all max equipment for the pieces of equipment that I use the most, and I'm happy with that. Now, would I like to have a max frozen arrow and not have to spend $50 on maxing out that frozen arrow? Yes, I would love to have that. But the reality is, I can still do the job with the equipment that I have. Now, if
Yeah.
I was an esports player, maybe I would feel differently about that. But also looking across that gulf, there's also part of me that's like, look, dude, you do this competitively. If you want to do this competitively, I would have to say that previous to this point, and maybe this is the wrong perspective. I'm 100% willing to say I am wrong on this. But previous to this point, it's been too cheap for you to reach max. Like if you can reach max in a month or two, only spend 20, $30 and stay at that uber competitive level, well maybe that wasn't charging you enough in order to reach that point. And now they're just kind of bringing the cost to be elite as quickly as possible more in line with what they should be. So,
Mhm.
for example, before they were charging $1 per cookie, when in reality they could have gotten $5 a cookie. Well, now they're charging $5 a cookie, when in reality they should have been charging $5 per cookie the whole time. And we're complaining that it's $5 a cookie when
Well
in reality, we should have just been happy that it was $1 per cookie for so long. I don't know that that's right, but that's kinda how I
well,
feel about it right now.
if you know what, in that scenario, it also says the time that the player that takes the time to upgrade and whatever, which I think is most people, um, doing upgrades, your time doing that just got more valuable.
Mm.
Like, you're waiting around or, like, you're taking the time. Yeah, you could take the time, now that is a $5 wait instead of a
Yeah, that's a
$2
great
wait.
point. That's a really great point. So the value of my time just increased exponentially.
Yeah, on this it might have balanced it, so it's like, yeah, I could put in 20 bucks, like $100 and get up there, or I could wait 6 months. Well, now maybe it's like, well, I could put in 500. Well, it's just much better. I'm gonna be playing with more people on the same playing field. I mean, I don't know. I don't know much of the picture and I don't really have a stance on
Yeah, and I
because I
I
don't know
think
much about anything. But
that's an excellent point. Like, that is a great point because essentially all of these items in game are still free to get. Just the limiting factor is
yeah,
time.
yeah.
We can just gain ore slowly. Like Supercell still has that free to play aspect to it, and as long as they don't go down the road of uh, God of War, or whatever that game was, to where they're literally trying to maximize profit at the expense of player experience, well, then I think they're okay. But the question is, where is that line? And right now, the top esports players are really the only group that I hear complaining about that. Like you said, as a casual player, I'm pretty happy with where my equipment is. And we make up 99.8% of the Clash of Clans player base. So at that point, should Supercell cater at all to the esports realm and either lower the cost or lower the amount of equipment that's newly introduced every single month, bi-monthly, tri-monthly, like whatever it may be. And it comes back to the point of how important is the esports world within Clash of Clans. So if esports just completely went away today, Supercell snapped their fingers and said, we're not having Clash Worlds in November. We're not sponsoring any esports tournament. You guys can do whatever you want in the community, but we're just going to put out this game. You enjoy it however you want, but we're not going to be involved. How many players on the casual side would say, oh, no more esports? Well, then I'm not going to play. Like, what percentage of the player base would do so versus Supercell slowly lowering the value of esports by, for instance, taking it from 8 teams to 6 teams? Like, that's reducing the value overall of the esports world. Them doing that 8 to 6 and not having to pay those costs, how does that affect the casual player base? And I would say almost none, like nil. So
Well, you
it all
kind of
comes back to how
it
much
might
do you
narrow it
cater to
down.
that
Maybe it's
esports.
just narrowing it down the format. So it's like, well, now you don't have to watch a 4 hour match or whatever. I don't even know. I'm
Mhm.
just kind of speculating. Like, there's just so many like moving parts to it. But I think like if Supercell was doing a dick move, it would be to say, um, okay, things are more expensive and they either stay the same amount of time or they take longer.
Mhm.
Like, okay, now you're really gonna have to do it. But it's more like, to me, I just got all that. time cut off, right? And, you know,
Right.
like on upgrades. And of course they do that like regularly, but I don't know. Like I don't feel personally like I feel like they're making it much easier for me to gem my money or to add money. I'll say that, you know, a little more persuasive,
I
but
mean, it comes down to that perception, right? The
yeah.
perception that the money that I'm spending is worth it.
But I also feel like when I'm to be honest, like I feel like, "Whoa, if I'm gonna put in like $10, you know, and I'm gonna be doing this for 3 hours a night, or hey, I'm really liking this war stuff, and I'm just gonna skip Starbucks, you know,
Yeah.
and I get for more than a coffee or for less than a coffee, I get 2 books of heroes and whatever." I'm like, hell
Mhm.
to the yeah, you know, like I'm I'm okay because I'm putting enough time in it, like going to a movie, you know, like going to a golf course and paying the stuff. Like I kind of get that there's going to be that, but you also don't have to, you know, you
Right.
can just take the time and it, if they do this, to be honest, I think if they let you war with your heroes down, right? If they continued the event and maybe not for the everyday war, or, you know, I could see it being just war. That would
Mhm.
be fine. If they did that, that to me would like level the playing field because you have the hero potions or whatever, but it wouldn't limit you in war. And I think there's nothing else that limits you in war besides pet and like maybe there. I mean, I'm not thinking of everything, but the pet and hero upgrades
Mhm.
because it really makes that's the only that's like the strong arm to me is like okay, you got to either pay to keep it up, or you can't war without your with your hero down.
Yeah, and heroes are so powerful now that it makes a huge difference
Yeah.
on whether your king is down to be able to do a war attack, and it making a huge difference when, for instance, if my giant gauntlet is level 15 versus level 27. Honestly, the difference between level 15 and level 27, yes, stats wise, they might be decent, but in reality, you can still 3-star pretty regularly with a level 15 giant gauntlet when you cannot 3-star regularly with an entire king down. Like, to me, that's a
Yeah.
huge difference.
Yeah, and honestly, with this event, and I'm loving it, Supercell. Thank you, thank you. I think this is
Mhm.
the way it should be. Feels really weird, feels naughty,
Yeah.
but uh, I love it, and I think that is just even if it was partial, like because I'm not, you know, after this, I'm not warring without a hero down. Our wars are too close. You know, now to do it, and I'm here's what I've been doing. I've been putting tons of levels on my king, keeping him down between CWLs, but I'm also not getting the practice in with him.
Mhm.
And so again, here's kind of a cost value. I'm putting time and having fun with war. Um, maybe I'll spend $2 this week instead of and I'm okay with that, right? Like I think I'm just gonna do books of heroes from now on, like and
Mhm.
slowly do it. I'm not gonna just go in and do it, but when I see a deal or whatever, because the wars are too close, and then I get close to CWL and I get a couple days with the king and I start smashing,
Mhm.
and I'm like, well, I wonder what I would have figured out in that time.
So, player perception is something that's interesting from a business standpoint too, because if a player perceives a game as being friendly, fun to play, then in turn they're going to spend more money, which kind of leads us to the next topic that I wanted to discuss with you. Did you want to say anything else about hero equipment before I jump into that?
Gimme.
You're
I wish
so
I wish I could get my shield back. If I could find that somewhere.
it's in the trash. You
Yeah, it's
threw it in the
somewhere.
dumpster.
I threw it away. Still can't find they came before you know, you told me a week later that it already come to pick up that dumpster.
That's
So,
so funny.
I'll have to go look for it.
Yeah,
No,
so
sorry,
you and
go
I actually talked about all this Supercell drama that's happening, them banning a creator on YouTube and there was some esports drama, and we specifically like talked about it, and we decided like not to address that issue specifically, just because there were lots of things said on both sides, and we weren't sure what the truth was. And I think that's the problem. Like one side saying this thing, the other side is saying this thing, and so for us to come out and say, we support one side or the other, like it just it wasn't clear, even though a lot of people were so sure on one side or the other. But what I wanted to ask you about was not whether or not the ban of Adam with Time to Clash and, the ban of Eric from the creator program, the ban of Erica, not whether or not that ban was justified. We're not going to discuss, like, I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in what your perspective is on creator experience. So whether or not Supercell was justified in banning these creators is not the issue. The fact is they did ban those creators. So how does that affect anybody who is a creator who sees that this happened and they think, "Oh shit, like this could happen to me."
Mhm.
And recently, Lexnos, who's a really big Clash of Clans streamer, YouTuber, he has, 250,000 subscribers. He's been doing Clash for a long time. He's played professional esports. Like he did a video recently where he talked about how the income is just not super dependable. It's up and down. And there's also this fact that this company that he's working with, again, justified or not, is not the issue here. But the fact is they can ban me as a creator at any time. And if I'm placing all of my income and like
Yeah.
the money that I use to support my family, and if I'm worried that if I just say the wrong thing, and again, it's not whether or not the person that they banned did say the wrong thing or not, or whether or not they were critical, or whatever the reason. But the perception now is if I say the wrong thing, could Supercell ban me because they don't like what I said? And how do you think that that will affect the overall creator base? Because if Lexnos is essentially using this as an argument and he's going back to engineering, like he's going back to school to get his PhD possibly, like he's not necessarily leaving YouTube and streaming, but he's going to adjust his focus to focus on a non-YouTube, non-Supercell, non-streaming job because he sees the danger in continuing down that path. Well, what if the next Judo Sloth right now has 1,000 subscribers? They make great videos and they see this happen. And they're like, oh crap, like, do I really want to pursue a career with Supercell games? Or should I go to another game and start making content on that other game because I'm worried that I may actually make it big and then Supercell decides to cut off my income source a year from now or 2 years from now? Like, how much of an effect do you think that that has on the overall creator base?
So I have very limited knowledge of, you know, besides a couple conversations and a couple videos, like of everything. But I will like here's so I'll just kind of answer like what I from that. I would say I don't think anybody likes to live feeling like somebody's got their foot on your throat.
Right.
And even that perception of it. Like,
Even if it's an
yeah,
unjust perception. Like,
like
let's say that Supercell's super nice, like they've been
yeah,
great to this far, but let's say that the perception is still there that they could do
yeah.
this.
Then that's the problem because then it's like, well, then you can't really trust um your content creator either because then you don't know if they're saying, yeah, this is good or whatever. It's like they got to be able to do stuff like that, like say whatever and just and they should be able to put out content or whatever.
Mm.
Like whatever the thing is. I think what maybe could just solve some of these things is for Supercell to like I don't know if it was me and I was Supercell, I would put together like a board for review. So that way, if something comes up with like a major content creator or whatever, like there's a group of, Supercell and other players, content creators in this thing that review it and whatnot. Like kind of make it more of a piece
A,
like
a democratic way of dealing with issues that might come up with content creators.
yeah, and if you are a someone creating content and to be honest, it's like because it's is a game company, you never know what's going to happen with the game and so but these people who are creating content and who are putting it out there and um and making a living off YouTube, but making a living by entertaining people and putting out content that people want to watch. In some ways, Supercell um, needs to. It would be, in my opinion. I don't know where this is, so like, don't come down on me, for it.
Mhm.
But make a promise to the creator that says, "Here's my. If you come in the creator program, this is." Because I went in there and looked around, but when they said the swearing thing, I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Um, but if you become a creator in this program, here's also what you can expect from us,
We
right?
promise to give you a fair shot.
Yeah, like just lay it out like, we know that we're trusting you, like you're trusting us with your income and your family and your kids and in saying, "Hey, you can know that if something happens or something comes up into debate, it's going to, these are the ways that you could violate it." And in that point, you go to review and you're going to be reviewed by peers and the company and whatnot. So that way you can, you can deal with it and you know that there's not somebody going to just come down and swipe off your YouTube channel or get deleted because of whatever. That's like messing with people's money. Like families and things and like if you can't feel secure or if you start feeling you have to watch your what you say, then in fear of like a reprisal,
Right.
then it becomes I mean, there's always gonna be a little bit, maybe Supercell like something. And I'm not saying that any of this happened, right? I'm just saying theoretically, if that's not a great that's not a great scenario for a creator or for and then it's like, well, why should why promote your product? Because I'm just putting myself at risk,
Mhm.
And so I just think there needs to be a promise between creators and a review thing. So that way everybody, like if with drama and stuff going on right now, if they said, okay, well, it went, Supercell banned this person and this, and then things come out and then they said, well, it's given to the community Supercell board for misconduct. They're reviewing it and they'll have a decision. They've always been fair in the past. Da 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 da. Yep, the ban. So people would go, yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, and I think that this has precedent because, for example, Facebook was accused of preventing free speech by taking down posts, like during
Yeah.
COVID or during when people would I about said rebel, but not rebel. What's it called when you like post march around with signs? My brain's not working right now.
Oh,
Uh,
revolt? No, not
what?
revolt.
Not revolt.
Protest. Protest?
Protest. When people protest, so like people would post stuff of like a protest or maybe during an event, and Supercell would take down stuff, and they were accused of not allowing the community to speak their mind on certain topics, especially if it wasn't friendly to Facebook. And so essentially what Mark Zuckerberg did was he created this Facebook board, like you
Yeah, yeah.
said, that reviewed items. Well, we're going to delete your account. And this is the reason we're going to take it to the board. And they're going to be the ones essentially who get to decide if it's justified or not. So I see the value in that 100%. I don't know that Supercell is going to go to that extent, but I do see it as a problem. And that if they
Creators need to be
are
able to trust. That's it.
Because
that
if
have
the
to like
trust isn't there, and again, we're not saying that they were or were not justified for taking this
right, right,
creator
right,
down.
yeah, just in general, like, with
Right.
creators, like, like 'cause I don't really know much in the full story or even probably half the story of things, but it's like, yeah, if there needs to be trust between the creator and the company and, um, knowing that it's just like a partnership with anything. It's like, "Oh, you get mad at me one day, it's not like you're divorcing me,"
Right.
like,
Yeah.
out the door. Like, you gotta break up, gotta go to therapy first, come on, Like,
Yeah, and I know that there are people who would be like, "Well, then just don't say anything bad about Supercell." Like, don't make any controversial videos, don't do anything that might upset them. But then, like you
how do you know
said,
what would upset somebody? You know?
well, and then like you said too, that's going to make the player base right. Like, let's the player base is smart. Like they play this game that's strategic, and they're going to be able to pick out if you're kissing butt or not, right?
Yeah.
If you're shilling for the company, like there needs to be a certain amount of criticism anyway in order for
The
creators
freedom of press.
to be trustworthy. Right. And that's what it comes down to. Are we going to have a democratic system? Like, are we going to have freedom of speech? Are we going to have freedom of the press? Or is it going to be more on the side of, well, this is Supercell's company, so they have a right to do whatever they want without any trust or any basis of reprisal for them deciding to cut off a creator. But I think this, whether or not they were justified, this does affect new creators, for example, who are looking to enter the Clans realm, or maybe they're not as big as Eric or as big as Judo Sloth, but they're still making Clash of Clans content. Well, if they're like, you know what, I don't know that I'm going to be able to make a living doing this. So I'm just going to go elsewhere. Like that's going to affect everybody. That's going to
Yeah.
affect the YouTube algorithm because if less people are making Clash of Clans content, even if you only have 1,000 subscribers, even if they only get 500 views per video, that still affects the algorithm in a minor way. And if that is on a grander scale where you have literally hundreds of creators who are like, I don't know that I want to make a video. Well, then YouTube's algorithm is going to start to de-escalate the the eyeballs that see Clash content overall, even with the big creators. So
Yeah.
it does have a monetary effect on what Supercell decides to do with this.
Has it already? I mean, I don't know if there's any this is kind of all hypothetical. I mean, right?
Well, so the only concrete example that I can think of is Lexnos, who
Oh,
literally
yeah.
said that in his video. He was like, I don't know that I want to keep doing videos if at any time this company could cut me off.
Yeah. And he
And let's
also
be
said he's a little
fair.
burnt out.
Well, yeah, and let's be
And
fair. Like Lexnos has been talking about going back to engineering for a long time.
yeah.
Like he has been discussing this. So I'm not. This is not done. This is not a decision made in a vacuum of Supercell banned this creator. Now I'm quitting. Like there are lots of other factors that are involved, but he did say that it was one of the factors.
Yeah.
So is that a factor with other creators who are covering Supercell's
Well,
games as well?
I don't know, it just seems like that's been a big topic in the community, um, over the last, like, 2 weeks or week and a half, and so, um, I don't know, I haven't heard of, like, this or that, but it seems like the content creators kind of have said they feel that way in some ways, right?
So yeah, so definitely
And
plenty have.
and so, yeah, I don't know, I just give Supercell ideas, or we just give Supercell ideas, so
Well, and how will that affect the game? Like it if you have less content creators, fewer content creators covering Clash because they see this thing that happened and
or is it
y-
just
will
the
that affect the
bigger
player base? Like will that affect people are not going to be seeing Clash of Clans as often on YouTube. They start seeing content creators cover these other games and they're like, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to try these other games." They fall in love with these other games, stop playing Clash. Like it's all connected. But the question is, maybe it's tip. No, this is not a big deal at all. Like three content creators going to stop because of this. That's not a big deal. So stop whining about it. And I that could be the case. But if it is the case where it could affect hundreds and thousands of hours of potential Clash content being produced, how does that have an effect on the overall player base and the revenue that could have been brought in if Supercell had not made this decision? Again, it's not going back to whether or not they made the right decision or not. It's the fact that they did, and the perception that there's a possibility that you could say something critical. And there have been, I've watched YouTube videos. I like keeping up with Galadon. Galadon's old school. You remember Galadon from back in the day.
Yeah.
He put out a video where he was literally like, folks, let's get real. Supercell's not going to ban you for being critical of their product. Look at this YouTuber who has, made obscenely critical videos. They were not banned,
Should we try it?
but but it's not about whether or not they have, it's the perception that they could. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm
Well, and
curious
who
about
knows?
how they're gonna respond to.
So Eric was banned and now he's not banned, I guess,
Mhm.
right?
Yep, so
And
he got his creator code. At least he was off, according to him, and I don't know that this is the case or not, he was offered his creator code back.
so yeah, so I don't know if it's like, I mean, who knows how it affects, but at the same time, it's like people who play Clash, and maybe there'll be other people doing YouTube, and I'm not saying I don't want people to go away or anything like that, but I don't know, it
Yeah,
might
so
just make room
I
for
can see
different
that point.
creators.
That's a great point too. Like, okay, so YouTuber A stops making Clash content. Well, there's another YouTuber that's just going to essentially take their place anyway. So overall, this is a neutral effect.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
I can see that. Like,
there's
I
been
can
a lot
definitely
of
see
people
that.
who have, like, retired and it hasn't shut the game down.
Right, right. But for instance, did Jake with One Hive not covering Clash of Clans with his YouTube videos, just shutting it down? Did that have an effect at all on the player base? Are there people who stopped playing because Jake stopped doing YouTube? And I don't know.
God, I
And
hope
maybe
not.
Supercell looks at maybe
Well, I
Supercell
just
looked at
that would
that.
sound like, as people there's always whenever something happens, there are always people that storm away, get mad and storm away, and then say, this has happened because of this, and then they come back and they're like, "Okay, maybe I was a little bit of a reaction," right?
Right.
Usually um sometimes it's just burnout too, where people are in it and in it and in it, and something happens and it's just like too much for people to take, and it's like I can't handle this. Like um before, like, taking a break, it was the ego came out and it was harder and harder to say be excited about things, and like
Right.
it's just like, oh, so if you're playing it and you're really invested in something, and then you get and you're just putting it out there and putting it out there, and then there's like disappointment, and you're trying to maintain like the excitement and keep your, like, it can just be exhausting.
Right.
And so there's a lot of factors. I hope everybody works out, and everybody kind of maybe it gets better. Maybe it overall gets clarified and things settle down.
And I
But
think that like your point comes back to hero equipment too. Like, sure, we have this group minority of esports players who are complaining that hero equipment's to play to win, when in reality, does the overall player base perceive hero equipment as a very positive and good thing? And how important is it for Supercell to placate the minority in order to not lose any of the player base who are completely fine with the way that the hero equipment system is set up?
well,
Like, it
then,
all comes down to perception and
and it's just for right now, right? Because then they change something and everything's different, and it's like,
right,
oh, all of a sudden they do an event because, like, these events getting tons of war and tons of that kind of
right.
stuff. It's like, speaking
And
of which, I have a problem with my Warden, I thought level 60 was the max for TH14 is 55.
I thought so too. Actually, I just ran into this. I think they added 5 levels. I think they and I don't know this for a fact, but I think they might have moved 5 levels down from Town Hall 15 to Town Hall 14,
Because
or vice versa. I can't remember what it is.
and I've been crushing my Warden. I'm gonna max him out for TH14 and he's going to max for right now. So I'm gonna have to go to TH15 mid-month in like
You think
5
so?
days. Yeah, I have to. Because this hero event, I cannot not put my heroes down.
Right. That's a good point because you have access to your heroes while they're down.
Because that would be like at least 3 levels probably on the Warden before then. And that's like Book of Heroes, basically,
Yeah.
to me. You know, like, of course I have to wait. So it's gonna suck because I have to like, boom, 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 boom. And I'm not gonna with the heroes, I'm not gonna have any builders really for everything else, but I think I'm gonna have to do it.
Yeah, it all comes down to priorities though, right? And we know how valuable heroes are. We just spent time talking about the power of hero equipment and how it can help you and, having heroes down. Because I mean, in August, are they going to go back to heroes down again? Like it would be nice to be able to
Yeah,
get your heroes up before that point where you don't necessarily have to have them down as much past July 31st.
because I could live on I could do books of heroes at that point because I don't want to
Yep.
war with them on my king, and so yeah, I'm just gonna have to push the button. I'm just gonna do it. It's so weird to be in endgame with those heroes. Like I never thought
It's a
like.
journey, isn't it?
It feels really weird, like it's not real, but it's at that point where I'm like content with them. They're doing whatever, and there's hero potions until I um get them up there, and yeah, kind of wild.
So I'll be taking up both my Town Hall 14 and Town Hall 15 to the next level, but I'm going to do so at the end of the month. So I don't buy the gold pass on Boimler, my Town Hall 14. So I want to be I don't spend much if any money on that account at all. So I want to have that 5 days of max
Yeah,
heroes and max troops going into CWL for the first week of August. Same with my Town Hall 15 going to Town Hall 16, although I do buy the gold pass on my Rush Town Hall 15. So I want to take advantage of that. So I'm probably going to wait and then time it so
that's
that
what I was gonna do.
they go, and you just have to determine the value. I mean, essentially, what you're looking at, there is the value of the loot. Like, of course, you're going to have
Yeah,
the 5 days of elixir gold collectors, but we've talked about this in the past. Like we can gain plenty of loot by raiding and attacking anyway. That's
yeah,
not a big of a deal. So essentially, what it comes down to is if you do it in the middle of the month, you're trading out 5 hero potions and 5 power potions for the opportunity to upgrade your heroes now to that next level. And
done,
is that worth 5 and 5?
done.
Yeah.
I've already got 5 power potions,
Yeah. Then go.
and yeah, done. That simplifies it for me. I'm kind of I think I just need to, and then I'm gonna get those first things down, and then I'm gonna work on low defenses all the way up. Just to
To
get it a little
even
bit more
everything
wheat.
out.
Yeah, because as these wars get tougher and yeah, I don't know. I gotta
Ne next
do more
next
practicing.
next month, CWL is definitely gonna look different because this month we included Town Hall 14s in CWL. Well, next month, it's essentially gonna be if you're a Town Hall 14, you gotta go over to Chewie's clan, Angry Wookiees, to war because it's all gonna be Town Hall 15s and 16s for next CWL, pretty
Oh, that'll be
much.
nice. Oh, I mean, I guess, yeah, because like a lot of us have went up to 15.
Mhm.
Like, are we I don't even know who is left in the 14s.
So there's me, you, D-Max has an account at Town Hall 14. Um,
DVS moved up.
EVS is Town Hall 15 now.
Yeah.
So we
Shaq
we
has
only have a
15.
couple. Chewy has a Town Hall 14. I don't know if he's gonna be moving that up or not,
Yeah.
but, like, we don't have many Town Hall 14s left, and everybody's kinda moving up, which, I mean, that's the goal of CWL, right? You wanna do well, and the way that you do better is by having higher town halls. Like, that's been the goal of
Yeah.
CWL this whole time, and then hopefully we can move up. We might move up this month from Masters 3 to Masters 2. We have a solid shot of doing that, and if we move up, then the next month, we might be able to move up to Masters 1, so we'll just have to wait and see, what happens, but it is gonna look differently on the map.
Yeah, I'll have to get a new base, and man, like, after that interview, thinking about the base is just wild. Like trappers and things like that.
Yeah.
Like,
We might have to go to World Base Building and buy some bases.
yeah.
We'll
Well,
have to see.
I'd like to, and I think it was Chewy that suggested a contest, right? That between us designing a base or something.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's right, I remember that, and seeing how
Um,
well it does.
that'd be kind of interesting to talk about the base building more and like where you even start. Like, because I've had plenty of bases that I've started, and
So,
they start with a grand design, and
it's
then I see
hard.
something, oh, squirrel,
Yeah.
and then I leave it. Um,
So, I built bases whenever I did competitive play a couple years ago. I built bases for Town Hall 11 and Town Hall 12, and, like, it's really hard.
y
So, the bases that I built were essentially crap compared to the people who knew what they were doing, where to put traps, like how many tiles away from the wall you need to keep your inferno towers, like why you place an inferno tower here, maybe in front of the queen versus behind the queen. Like, do you place the queen in the middle versus the outside? Where do you place the eagle? Like all of that. And then I would build these bases because, especially back then, there weren't a lot of people building bases for Town Hall 11 and Town Hall 12. So you kind of had to build it yourself, at least competitive level
yeah,
bases. Like, it was really difficult. Like, I don't, it's going to make my brain hurt to even try that for Town Hall 15 or 16.
and maybe we could start with one base, like, here's the base, like a initial base, you adapt it
Right.
or something. I because I'm lost. I'm, like, trying to do some, adjust some traps, um, but yeah, there's some skills there. I think, like, it would be really interesting to learn more about just trap placement because we probably have some of the bases. Like, I'll ask somebody for a base or like Moo for a base, and Moo will give me one. And like, maybe there's something we could learn about traps and to just adapt those bases better. You
Right. And
know,
that's an
like
option.
like
Yeah.
maybe there's somebody that, what are we when we get these bases from online, what can we do to adapt them to make them better for current
That is
meta and
interesting.
stuff?
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
I don't know, but I just would love to say this to everybody this week. Put a cocaine bear in your defensive CC. Put 2, because that's fun. Have you been watching these replays?
Yeah, I did. I watched some of them. I, I don't know. I don't know how well they do. I saw some of the
Do you
replays. I'm
think
like,
I'm just
oh,
entertained?
no. So,
That
for
one,
instance, on Gwen's attack, for example, it did look like the Cocaine Bears took a ton of troops down, but also at the same time, the king was right there beside them. So I don't know how much to attribute to the Cocaine Bears and how much to attribute to the king in those situations. I do think that it's a possibility.
were their body parts?
Yeah.
Because
They were
that's
flying all over the
yeah.
screen and white stuff
It's
coming out of the
snowing.
sky.
Every time every time the druid turns into the cocaine bear, it starts snowing like winter.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth trying. It's definitely worth trying. I'm never opposed
So
to.
they heal and then they'll go over and like they'll heal the next thing until they go. But I've seen them maul things, take shit down. Um, they're pretty wild.
if you're gonna utilize the druid portion, you just gotta make sure that you have a hero
By your
that's close
CC.
to the clan castle because they're gonna sit there and heal the hero for 30 seconds before the cocaine bears will come out anyway. So that's I don't know the strategy that would be
Oh,
involved with that and how to utilize that best. Because if your heroes are far away from the CC, because
but
the
one
druids go and heal the heroes, like, will they be useful if they get pulled at the opposite side of the base and the cocaine bear comes out somewhere else? I don't
well,
know.
it also could give them a surprise, right? Because they're expecting the CC to come over here to deliver it, and all of a
It's true.
sudden, it
Yeah, it's a
takes a
great point.
while. But it's not like in the one attack on my base, it was there's a cocaine bear that I put a golem and a druid and no ice golem and druid. And when that it just took the queen forever to the um get those
To work
down. And then the
to work through
cocaine bear
everything.
came out. Yeah, and then I won a defense. But they're fun to watch.
Yeah, very
And I've
cool.
been using that for an entry too. I've been using 3 to 5 bowlers with 2 druids, right? So I'll put in 3 bowlers and then 2 druids, and I'll put that in front of my catapult,
Mhm.
and they will last for a really long time. So I'll put out the 3, and if one dies, I'll throw another one in, throw another one in, and then the cocaine bears pop, and then they go nuts for the defenses. Uh, and so it's a really good way for me to get my flinger where I can't have flung. I couldn't have flung before.
Going where no man has gone before.
Where no flung has ever flinged before.
Or it's gender neutral now, going where no one has gone before.
No one has gone before. Yeah, so that's it's been a kind of exciting week getting kind of thinking about those next tiers of or just the processes of the elite clans and thinking more like of the game in a little bit more full way for me. Um just a wild world. Like,
Yeah,
wow, I did not realize things.
there's a lot.
Yeah. Anything else you want to get to this week?
No, I think I've covered everything that I want to talk about. Thank you for discussing it with me because it's always interesting to kind of solidify my thoughts, to get your perspective. I love your perspective. So shout
That's
out to
always
Scotty 827.
shout out to you. Yeah, it's interesting to talk about the stuff. And it's, as you see things like, a YouTube video pops up or this and you hear this, it's always like just part of the incomplete story. So it's,
Hmm.
um, and there's always something going on. It's all in every, I think it's always just important. We don't know everything. So,
Right. True.
shout out to Swimboy who emailed into the podcast this week.
Who
Shout
was
out
that?
to Swimboy.
Oh, Swim Boy. Okay.
Shout out to you and Chewy for doing all this work with CWL and getting people moved around and everything. It's been fun.
Hmm.
And shout out to the listener out there and to House of L as always.
Shout out to Griffo who stopped by the clan last night to say hey.
Oh
Didn't
yeah, yeah. I
didn't
saw that this morning. I
I
missed.
typically go to bed pretty early, and so I woke up this morning at like 6, and I saw that he had popped in. So I didn't get to say hi,
I
but
think I just missed him last night.
hi, Griffo. Stay a little longer next time so I can say hey.
Yeah, for sure.
You're a Clash celebrity. Everybody knows who you are. We'd love to say
I
hey.
suppose everybody would be over there. I suppose everybody's doing CWL and everything right now, so it's
Yeah,
getting
we're
back
all
to
kind
where
of
we're
spread
there.
out a little bit.
I gotta do my clan games too. All right. Well, get a hold of us, Clash of Clans Podcast at gmail.com, clashofclanspodcast.com, or 320-216-2073. That's 320-216-2073. Follow follow Clash on the Tip podcast Follow
Follow Clash on the Tip podcast. the big tip podcast.
The Big Tip.
Just the tip.
Just the Tip podcast.
Just the tip podcast.
Clash
And
Tip
just the tip YouTube channel.
Whoops. Clash Tips on YouTube. And Clash Tips podcast. Until next time, keep it clashy, everybody.
Keep it clashy.
Skilly beep 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 skilly beep.